Welcome back. Today we do a quick one on the Rose Techniques or ROSESELSA Ceramics X. I never really know what name they actually go by. So here you can actually see it's ROSESELSA, but I think everyone knows them as Rose Techniques. So I'll call them Rose Techniques. But this is Ceramics X. So it's been out for a little bit. I reviewed the original Ceramics a little while back, but kind of out of the box, in my ear, hit play. These are a much better set. I don't say that just because they're a better set and they're the new thing. They are definitely a much improved set over the original Ceramics, which were okay, but these are much, much nicer. So this is what it looks like. So this is the case. I think the case is actually pretty similar. The actual shells and design, slightly different. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. I'll show you both of them side by side in a minute. But pretty cool, right? These are Ceramics X. I think the shell shape is generally about the same, but the nozzle was clear on Ceramics as well, and you can see into almost where the driver is through the damper, through the mesh, in the same way that you could on the original Ceramics. So I don't think there's a whole lot changed on the design or the actual shells. I think that is pretty much the same. The case is pretty much the same. So we'll kind of jump into it at that point, and we'll say, you know, if you don't want to pay attention to everything else, I like bassy V-shaped TWS sets for outdoor use, and these are an easy erect. That's exactly what they are. Very nice set. I popped them in, put on some dead mouse, electronic dance music, hit go, perfect, high energy, nice bass, not fatiguing treble, you know, very clear. Pretty much exactly what I look for in TWS. For outdoor use, doing yard work, you know, I'm not really too concerned about the level of resolution and resolve. I'm kind of more concerned about a fun, bassy set that's going to let me listen to music for a few hours and not get fatigued. And it just should have a very fun sound to it. And that's exactly what Ceramics X did. So what's new in Ceramics X? And I hate that name. It's really hard to say. LDAC is kind of their number one feature. This one does have ANC as well, and the tuning actually changed a little bit as well. So is it better than Ceramics? And as I said, yes, kind of right away, it is a much better set, kind of all around. The only thing that is not better about the original one is the original came in this really cool black case. This one does not come with the case, but I always thought this was interesting, right? It's a TWS, something that you put in your pocket, and they gave you this really nice rectangular case, and I never really understood it, but it is a really cool case, so I'm not going to rip on it too much. It's a very cool case, but they did lose the case in the Ceramics X version. So you can kind of see side by side, they kind of class this one up a little bit. You've got the gold writing on it, and these are, look, again, like I said, they're very, very similar. They just changed the design slightly if we looked at them side by side. So, yeah, very, very close, but they just changed it up a little bit. But for the most part, they are going to look very, very similar and fit very, very similar. So that is the old set. This is the new set. So, as I said, this one of the main differences on this one, it actually does come with LDAC. If you are going to use it with LDAC, I will say you have to install the app first. It kind of threw me at first, because I am so used to connecting TWS and they connect on LDAC. There's a little slider on my phone that says you want to use LDAC, and I'm really used to that. On this one, you won't see that. You actually have to download their app and enable LDAC, and then you will see it. And I think that goes back to, they probably have it on here. So multi-device pairing, is it on here somewhere? I don't actually see it, but so sets that tend to do multi-device pairing will not do multi-device pairing on LDAC. So on a set like Soundpeats, you have to disable ANC, and then you can actually enable multi-device pairing. I think on this one, they do the opposite. I think they've enabled multi-device pairing out of the box, and then you have to disable and then enable LDAC. And I think they just did it in reverse from what other folks do. But, you know, here's some other specs. About 10 hours of playtime, 50 hours with the case battery, and 55 dB of ANC. So we'll kind of talk about that really briefly right now. Before that, so the app does let you enable LDAC. It also does have the 3 presets that you got on this one as well: pop, hi-fi, and rock. try them once. You'll find one that works for you. I liked hi-fi on this one. I don't think I actually liked hi-fi on the original. Hi-fi is definitely the better one. It's the more balanced one for me on this one. And ANC on this is very, very good. Like I just said, 55 dB. And the 55 dB is a number that I've seen around on other sets. So I'm kind of curious if that's a Qualcomm reference design implementation and everyone is simply using it and kind of quoting that number because that's what Qualcomm gives them. So yeah, 55 dB used to be a really, really high number for ANC. Now I see it more common. So I'm kind of guessing that is more outside of in the realm of Qualcomm's implementation as opposed to something ROSESELSA did or KZ, I think quoted the same exact number. But I'll say it's actually done very, very nicely on this one. Again, if you're doing yard work, you're doing power tools outside, it's immediately noticeable. If you turn it on indoors, you would immediately notice how things get very, very quiet. So this one does do actual ANC, like I said. It will do transparency mode, and it will kind of pipe in environmental sounds if you're used to transparency modes. And this one does have a specific wind noise, which is something I haven't seen in other sets. Typically, they do wind cancellation. This one has a specific wind noise mode, which I haven't seen all that often. And these are all enabled either by touch, by holding down 3 seconds on the shell, or by using the app. It's kind of quicker to do it in the app. So sound-wise, like I said, the tuning on this one changed a little bit. I think the original ceramics is right there in blue, and it had a kind of a nice bass shelf, and then it was kind of a more V-shaped version of tuning, and you got a lot here and then not so much here, and you can kind of see what they did with Ceramics X, and this is the hi-fi preset. Like I said, this is about the one that's the most balanced. The pop and the rock tend to offset either the bass or the treble in some ways, so I like hi-fi, but really nice. Again, this bass shelf that kind of goes nice glide, and then just raising that to 10 dB, what you're kind of used to on IEMs, a very popular level for upper mids and treble, and then they ease this down so you get a lot of meat in your tracks right there, and then you get a non-fatiguing, relaxed sort of version of treble so you can turn it up and have fun. And that's exactly what Ceramics X sounds like. It's definitely more kind of end-to-end consistent, and I don't know, I think I just like the tuning on X. Kind of immediately out of the box, X sounds a lot more consistent, a lot more of what I was expecting, a lot more fun. And a lot of it is just bringing down these levels so they are kind of more in line with my preferences, and that's exactly what they did. So compared to the original, it is still a V-shaped set. It still has quite a bit of bass, and if you get the tips to fit your ear, the tips kind of look like this as well. So cool. We can actually pull out the tips are actually a little different. I'm not sure why they switched the tips, but the tips on the ceramics were slightly different. These are these fit fine for me. I didn't use a third-party tip. I just used the ones that were included. But you definitely will get a really nice hit of bass using get a nice seal on your shells. You'll get a nice hit of bass like that. So it still has plenty of bass for outdoor use. Not sure if it's the same driver between the two. Like this one just sounds better, and I'm not sure if they use the same driver. It's just the tuning that sounds different, but kind of definitely right out of the box, I much preferred X compared to the original. And if you told me they were the same driver, I would just say it's probably just the tuning is slightly different and better implemented on the Ceramics X. So bass, again, this nice glide bass shelf will give you fun sub bass, some mid bass levels. Presets can give you a heavier sound, but the hi-fi works best for me. Certainly not bass shy at all. It tends to sound punchy versus thick, which is how I prefer it. Some TWS get kind of bogged down in the sub bass, and you get that really heavy, thick sound. This is definitely more of a punchy, quick hitting bass style. And again, I think that sounds very, very nice outdoors, and that's kind of what I prefer. And on the mids, again, for outdoor use, I'm looking for really nice vocal clarity and reasonable timbre. I like a fun sound. I don't care if it's slightly off timbre, off natural. As long as it is a fun, energetic sound, I'm kind of all for that. And the hi-fi preset can definitely sound a little bit thinner, but I like the clarity over the bass, and the treble isn't too boosted and dipped. And again, I think the balance that they got right on the newer version is kind of right on. The original was just a little bit off, and the presets kind of moved it around, but not quite as nicely as it does on the X version. So definitely a fun, energetic mids, and that's exactly what I like here on TWS. And on the treble, the graph looks, at least the treble, the graph looks kind of low. And again, I will say on the original one, this was like kind of super peaky, and then you had some inconsistencies out here. You can imagine that the 8K just kind of cuts right across. So I think it's just the ratio. You know, this was a little bit too high and this was a little bit too low. And now with the X version, they sort of brought the two together. And I think you end up with a much more consistent end-to-end treble on this one. And again, I didn't go back and listen to this one and point out everything that was wrong with it. But it was inconsistent, is to say the least, on the treble. So definitely new tuning, possibly a new driver, but definitely end-to-end better. So nothing peaky, nothing bright, exactly what I want on a TWS. If I want more energy, I'll just turn it up in volume. There is some extra energy in the upper treble out here, and that just gives you a bigger sense of space. For the most part, this is a really nicely balanced V-shape for TWS. Again, like I said, you can pop it in your ears. A very fun, bass-hitting, you know, plenty of vocal clarity, really nice kind of V shape. So I don't have any problems. I think it's a really nice improvement over the original, and they can probably stop selling the original, maybe take all these extra cases and include them with the X version, but that would be my only nitpick. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.